And with us for the next 30 minutes, I've been joined by Margot Parker, MEP from UKIP, and the Conservative MEP, Ashley Fox. Let's take a look at one of those stories in more detail, the vote in the European Parliament in favour of allowing member states to decide themselves whether to ban GM crops or not. Margot Parker, does that mean it's the green light for GM crops to be grown and used in England?
I don't think it does, actually. A recent Which study showed that the British public were 71% not in favour and 15% actually were undecided. So we actually think that this level needs to be brought to the British Parliament, and they should actually have the competence on this and the say on this.
But in the end, won't they decide anyway? Wouldn't it be up to... I mean, all right, it's been agreed at an EU level. Won't it now be agreed by the Parliament here?
It'll come back to the EU at the end of the day. It always does.
Is that what you think too? Should GM crops now be used and grown here in England? There's a ban on Scotland and Wales, but what about here?
We are broadly in favour of GM crops. We want a proper scientific approach to that. And this legislation enables the British Parliament to take that decision in a scientific manner, and we're in favour of that.
Right, what do you say to that?
Well, ultimately, it still comes back to Europe. I mean,
but what do you think about the issue of GM crops itself? Are you a fan or not?
With care. I mean, you really do need to have the scientific proof that it really is the right thing to do.
But the benefit of this legislation is that powers are being returned to the Westminster Parliament. It is a good decision.
No, they're not.
Because the British Parliament will be able to make that decision, certainly for England, and that's why we approve of it.
What's UKIP's policy on GM crops?
Well, actually, we do think that it needs to come back, most definitely, to the British public.
Which it has.
Because no, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. With respect, it's deeply buried within the paperwork. So ultimately, whatever we decide here, the EU will have the ultimate say on it, and I think you know that.
That isn't clear, actually, from what I've read so far.
No, it won't be clear.
So, I mean,
but
it's
nothing's
not a
clear with the EU,
Well, so you would say. I couldn't possibly comment. But Margot, you still haven't told me what UKIP's policy is towards GM crops. Are they in favour or are they not?
Well, again, I mean, we need to have the competence to know that actually it's safe. People are worried about, you know, animals being fed sort of all sorts of chemicals, and it gets into the food chain. So let's have that debate.
Margot doesn't want to admit that this piece of legislation gives the power to the British Parliament, and this is a real success. So that's why we're happy with it.
And that's why you're in favour of it, but you still want it with some sort of scientific...
We are very happy for the Food Standards Agency on a scientific basis to approve or not each product. Once that's approved, the British Parliament says yes or no, and that's a good policy.
All right.
But the overarching fact is that the EU has the final say. That's the point.
And you've had the final word on that discussion.